Imagine a field for a second. In this field, you have the exact same soil. You've got the exact same amount of sunlight beaming down, the exact same
Right, the exact same baseline environment.
Exactly, the exact same nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, all of it. But growing out of that identical dirt, you have a peony, an apple tree, and like a stalk of corn.
Yeah.
They absorb the exact same nutrients, yet they grow into these completely fundamentally different forms. Now, if you apply that same logic to human beings, you take two classmates, right?
Yeah.
They graduate from the exact same university, they sit in the exact same lectures, but they end up with wildly different life paths and destinies. And the question is, well, why does this happen?
It's kind of the ultimate question of nature versus nurture, but this text frames it in a way that just completely bypasses standard biology.
Totally.
We are really looking at the invisible architecture behind how a life actually takes shape and, why two beings in the same environment can experience entirely different realities.
And mapping out that invisible architecture, that's the core mission of our deep dive today. We are exploring an excerpt by an author named Su Feng, which was edited by Yu,
Right.
and it's titled How to Receive Negative Cosmic Energy and Information. And I mean, this text provides a deeply fascinating framework on how non-material energy shapes our destiny, our belief systems, and even, according to the author, the literal physical structure of the Earth.
Yeah, it functions as this almost comprehensive, grand, unified theory of existence. I mean, the author attempts to link the most mundane daily habits, like what you read on the internet, directly to global meteorology and personal salvation.
It is wild. But hey, before we jump into the deep end here, I want to give a quick heads up to you listening.
Mhm.
The source material we're covering today gets into various political ideologies and very specific religious beliefs.
Yeah, it explicitly brings up Christianity, Buddhism, communism, Islam, and Taoism.
Right. And we want to be crystal clear right out of the gate here. We are not taking sides, and we are absolutely not endorsing any of these specific viewpoints.
No, not at all.
Our goal today is purely to impartially lay out this author's philosophical framework for you, so you can see exactly how Xu Feng connects these massive concepts. So, okay, let's unpack this. Where does this text actually begin to explain the fundamental difference between, say, the apple tree and the corn stalk?
So it all begins with this concept the text calls life's genetic structure. But, and this is important, the author isn't talking about DNA in the biological double helix sense.
Right, not literal biology.
Exactly. According to this framework, every single living thing has a specific, inherent, non-material blueprint. And this structure dictates the exact bandwidth of energy and information that a living thing is basically capable of receiving from the universe.
And the text points out that the margins for this bandwidth are just incredibly thin. I mean, even a 1 in 1,000 difference, just the tiniest, most microscopic variation in this non-material genetic structure leads to massive species-level differences in what an organism ultimately becomes.
Yeah, that tiny variation totally changes what you can absorb. Which I guess brings us to the energy itself. The title uses the phrase negative cosmic energy and information.
Which sounds kind of bad, right? Like negative vibes.
Right. In Western colloquial terms, negative usually implies pessimism or, bad energy. But the author uses it in a structural sense. It refers strictly to the non-material.
Okay.
Think of it as the unseen software running our physical hardware. It is this invisible, intangible force that animates the physical universe. It's essentially the unseen Wi-Fi signal transmitting the data of existence.
But this Wi-Fi signal isn't just one uniform cloud of energy, right? The text lays out a very rigid, highly specific hierarchy of transmission.
Oh, very rigid. So at the absolute top of this hierarchy, broadcasting the greatest energy and the richest information, is the greatest creator's spirit, which the text also refers to as the Tao.
The Tao, right?
The mechanism here is purely about frequency and power. The Tao is the ultimate uncorrupted source code.
And then the signal cascades down through these different levels of existence. So below the Tao, you have the energy of gods, and the text actually explicitly notes that this tier includes the energy of Satan.
Yeah, which is an interesting detail.
Totally. And from there, it filters down to super celestial beings, which the author equates to Buddhas. Then it moves through various levels of celestial beings like deities, land celestial beings, and human celestial beings, which are described as saints.
And notice how the text separates these entities. They aren't just, sitting on arbitrary clouds playing harps. They represent different mechanical capacities to process high-frequency information.
Oh, no, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then below the saints, you find humans with perfect human nature, referred to as virtuous people. Then you drop down to mortals, worldly people, ignorant people, animals, and finally, at the very bottom of this hierarchy, you have plants.
So, wait, are we essentially just biological tuning forks or radio antennas, like just picking up different invisible frequencies based on our internal makeup?
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
So the apple tree is mechanically limited to tuning into, say, 98.5 FM. The ignorant person is stuck on a static-filled AM station, while the saint has the internal hardware to pick up a crystal clear satellite feed.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is how the text takes these highly abstract, ancient spiritual concepts and maps them onto an almost mechanical input-output spectrum of absorption.
Right.
You don't just believe something in this framework. You're structurally tethered to a specific frequency. Your non-material genetic structure is the dial, and whatever station you are tuned to literally dictates your physical reality.
Okay, so if my genetic structure is the dial on a radio, I feel like I need to know what station I'm currently tuned to. Like, am I passively absorbing this negative cosmic energy right now while sitting in traffic or waiting in line for coffee?
Well, the author argues that you are.
Right.
And Xufeng uses this really brilliant metaphor to explain our relationship to this energy. Basically, fish are entirely unaware of the water they swim in.
Oh, wow, right.
In the exact same way, human beings are constantly submerged in and entirely unaware of the Tao.
So we are just swimming in this ocean of invisible information, taking it in through our gills every single second of the day.
Yep, the text classifies those who lack awareness of this ocean as ignorant people or worldly people or mortals. Conversely, virtuous people, saints, and celestial beings are defined by their acute, conscious awareness of the specific energy they are absorbing.
And this moves beyond just passive absorption, too. The text gets very detailed about our active information diet, especially when it comes to ideology and reading habits.
Right.
The argument is that belief systems are not the result of logic or persuasion, but the direct physical result of the literal texts people consume.
Yeah, it literally treats reading a book as ingesting non-material code.
Yeah.
The text claims that when you read different books, you absorb entirely different energetic frequencies, which then physically alters your behavior and your worldview.
Yeah.
It's wild. It presents these stark side-by-side comparisons to illustrate the mechanism, too. The author claims this is the core reason true Christians don't believe in reincarnation and choose to eat meat, whereas true Buddhists firmly believe in reincarnation and abstain from meat.
Right.
And it extends to political and philosophical texts as well. Like, true communists reject the idea of past and future lives entirely, while true Taoists don't believe there is a judgment after death.
Because the underlying logic is that the Christian is only absorbing the specific frequency transmitted by the Bible. The Buddhist is downloading the code from the Buddhist sutras, the Muslim from the Quran, and the communist from Marxism and Mao Zedong thought.
The physical book itself acts as a frequency transmitter.
Exactly. It's altering the reader's non-material structure to match its specific worldview.
And Xufeng brings this concept directly into the modern era with the internet, which I think makes the theory feel incredibly immediate for us today. When browsing online, the text notes that ordinary people simply consume the daily news. They just eat whatever updates are placed in front of them.
Yeah, the passive consumers.
Right, whereas the wise person uses the internet to seek out wisdom in others' writings. The text says they are actively mining for gold and collecting gemstones.
Which is such a great image.
It really is. So what does this all mean for you and me? Like, if I am doom scrolling the daily news on my phone right now, does this text literally mean I am ingesting a lower energy than if I sit down and read a dense philosophy book?
It confirms exactly that. It is entirely indistinguishable from your physical diet.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you eat junk food, your physical body deteriorates because of the macronutrients, right?
Right, obviously.
Well, if you consume fragmented, low-level information like daily oddities, generic news, or, social media arguments, your non-material structure absorbs that low-tier energy, and your destiny degrades.
Wow.
The text explicitly states that those who don't follow a specific path rely on fleeting feelings or preferences to just sort of randomly absorb energy, resulting in a chaotic internal structure.
It's like grazing at a cosmic buffet with absolutely no nutritional plan. You just take whatever the algorithm serves you.
And the results are just as haphazard. That's why the text contrasts this casual consumption with the intended audience of the piece, which are members of an organization called Lifechanyuan.
Great, Lifechanyuan.
For these members, the goal is to purposefully bypass those low-level inputs and absorb the highest possible frequency, the energy, and information directly from the greatest creator.
Okay, but if doom scrolling feeds my non-material structured junk food, how locked in am I to this diet? Like, can I just change the dial, or am I permanently stuck with the genetic structure I was born with?
So the author introduces a really crucial mechanical distinction here between two concepts, fate and fortune.
Okay.
Fate is fundamentally predetermined. The text states plainly, a cow is a cow and a horse is a horse.
So you can't change your starting species.
Right, you cannot alter your starting species or your baseline physical attributes.
Yeah.
That hardware is locked. Fortune, however, is your trajectory. Fortune can be actively rewritten. The text argues that the ongoing process of altering your fortune eventually leads to a transformation of your fate.
And the text offers some surprisingly grounded intermediate methods for changing this fortune before getting to the advanced techniques. It lists 3 practical steps: getting an education, seeking guidance from enlightened individuals, and choosing a career that actually aligns with your inherent personality.
Yeah, it acknowledges that practical realities exist. You have to optimize the hardware you were given before you can start downloading the advanced software.
There's this really great quote used for the career advice. It says, "A man fears choosing the wrong career, and a woman fears marrying the wrong man."
Yeah.
The author points out that if someone is born with a rough, scratchy voice and they stubbornly pursue a career in singing, they will waste their entire life fighting their predetermined fate rather than optimizing their fortune.
Makes perfect sense. But once those intermediate steps are optimized, the text insists that Lifechanyuan members must transition into what it calls advanced self-improvement.
And this is where it gets really deep.
Yeah, this stage abandons external practicalities entirely. It relies on 3 internal tools to rewrite the non-material structure: music, visualized thinking, and harnessing thoughts.
Okay, we definitely need to break down how those actually work because, I mean, at first glance, they sound a bit like generic self-help buzzwords.
I know, but the mechanism behind them is anything but generic. First, take music. Yufeng isn't talking about putting on a catchy pop playlist to boost your mood.
Right.
The mechanism here relies on acoustic resonance. Specific harmonious melodies are argued to physically vibrate at the exact same frequency as the Tao. By listening, you're essentially forcing your own internal structure to sync up with that cosmic rhythm.
It's like placing a vibrating tuning fork next to a still one until they both start humming at the exact same pitch.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about visualized thinking? Because that sounds like vision boards or something.
According to this framework, visualized thinking is definitely not daydreaming or, positive affirmations. It is the deliberate, intensive practice of forming internal mental structures that match the frequency of the greatest creator.
Oh, wow.
You are essentially using your focused imagination to draft a non-material blueprint. You're building an internal antenna before it can even manifest in reality.
And then the third tool, harnessing thoughts, powers that antenna, right?
Correct. The text posits that everyday human thoughts are totally scattered, just shooting off in a million directions, which dilutes our non-material energy. Harnessing thoughts is the grueling practice of gathering all that scattered energy and focusing it into a single, cohesive laser beam of high-frequency resonance.
Okay, but this raises an important question. If we spend all this time perfectly calibrating our internal antenna through music and focused thought, what impact does that actually have on the external physical world we have to live in?
To explain that impact, the author anchors the philosophy using a real-world reference called the stunning water crystal experiment.
Right, the water crystal experiment.
The claim of this experiment revolves around the literal physical malleability of matter. If you look at an ordinary drop of water with the naked eye, it appears completely static. But under specialized microscopic equipment, the structural makeup of that water allegedly changes dramatically based on the external, non-material emotions projected at it.
Yes. The text states that when water is exposed to feelings of joy and love, the molecules form these beautiful, intricate, perfectly harmonious crystal structures. But when that exact same water is exposed to contention, anger, and hatred, the crystals just break down and become violently deformed.
And Sufeng takes this microscopic observation and scales it all the way up to encompass the entire universe.
This is the crazy part.
The argument is that every physical element behaves exactly like that drop of water. If a family, a community, or a society is filled with serenity and love, the text claims the surrounding environment literally restructures itself into a harmonious physical system.
Wait, so this isn't just about human sociology or like creating a pleasant community vibe. Are we talking about literal agricultural and environmental shifts? Like the garden grows better because the family is happy?
Far beyond the garden, the text explicitly states that mountains, stones, soil, rivers, wind, rain, and snow will all thrive and cooperate with humanity. You achieve a world of perfectly balanced weather and universal prosperity simply because the non-material frequency commands the physical molecules to align.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly where I have to push back a bit to fully grasp the scale of what Xu Feng is proposing here.
That's a lot.
The text says that conversely, if humanity is contentious and full of hatred, then earthquakes, storms, droughts, floods, diseases, and wars will frequently occur.
Yes.
Wait, this text is proposing a direct physical causal link between collective bad moods and actual tectonic earthquakes or floods? That is a massive leap from personal self-help to global meteorology.
It is an enormous leap. But the author provides a specific mechanical explanation for it, which relies on the concept of a critical point.
A critical point.
Right. The text argues that the molecular structure of physical matter is constantly being bombarded and altered by humanity's collective state of mind. On a day-to-day basis, your individual anger doesn't immediately spawn a hurricane because the physical Earth can absorb minor molecular deformations.
Okay, so the drop of water gets slightly less crystalline, but the glass doesn't shatter.
Exactly. But when millions of people harbor hatred, greed, or contention simultaneously over a long period, those deformed molecular structures accumulate. And eventually they cross the threshold, this critical point.
Oh, wow.
Once that critical point is breached, the physical Earth simply cannot sustain the deformed molecular tension anymore. The matter snaps. The result is a massive, uncontrollable physical eruption, an earthquake, a severe drought, or a devastating storm.
So, if the entire Earth's molecular structure is bending under the weight of human contention, and these global critical points are inevitably going to snap at some point, how does an individual survive? Like, what is the practical application of this theory when the hurricane actually arrives?
Well, the author is actually quite fatalistic about the macro-level events. The text states definitively that massive natural changes and disasters are inevitable and irresistible.
But wait, why irresistible? If enough people used visualized thinking, couldn't they just stop it?
Xu Feng points to ancient prophecies to argue their inevitability. The author reasons that if these global calamities weren't destined to happen, then foundational texts like the Bible, the Buddhist Sutras, Mayan prophecies, the Chinese Tu Bei Tu, and the Ma Qian would all be meaningless fabrications.
Ah, I see.
The author accepts that the big systemic disasters are locked in. Therefore, the entire philosophical focus shifts purely to individual survival. The goal is to transform your own non-material structure so thoroughly that you transcend the mundane and achieve celestial qualities.
And the text details the author's own personal cultivation journey toward these celestial qualities, right? Xu Feng claims to have explored all the traditional Kaigong theories, found the countless contradictory methods totally overwhelming, and ultimately abandoned them to create a completely new, proprietary method.
Yeah, and through this self-created method, the author claims to have achieved something really astounding: physical immunity.
Wait, actual physical immunity? Like, to things like extreme cold or infectious disease, that sounds like a superpower.
It sounds extreme, but within the internal logic of Xu Feng's framework, it is just the natural, mechanical outcome of changing your frequency.
How does that work?
The explanation isn't that the practitioner suddenly grows some kind of invisible armor. It's about frequency incompatibility.
Yeah.
When a disease strikes and worldly people succumb to it, the practitioner remains completely unaffected because their molecular structure has been so harmonized by high-frequency energy that the low-frequency energy of the disease simply cannot interact with it.
Wow.
They literally pass right through each other. To the celestial practitioner, the disease is practically non-existent.
And to make this concept incredibly concrete, the text shares this striking anecdote about an American woman. She was driving her child up a treacherous mountain road to a lodge. Midway there, her car inexplicably breaks down. She's delayed for 2 whole hours, stranded, probably super frustrated.
Naturally.
But during those exact 2 hours, the mountain lodge she was heading toward was completely buried and destroyed in a massive avalanche.
Right. Had her car functioned normally, she and her child would have arrived just in time to perish in the snow.
And the text absolutely refuses to view this as a lucky coincidence. It explicitly states, seemingly accidental events are actually inevitable. The core detail the author zeroes in on is that the woman had prayed before starting her journey. Her internal frequency was aligned.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it beautifully synthesizes Xu Feng's ultimate conclusion. The prayer was not some magical shield that literally stopped the avalanche from falling. The prayer, the focused act of revering the greatest creator and aligning with nature, created a beautiful, harmonious, non-material structure within the woman's mind. This structure physically forced her reality to resonate with higher life frequencies.
So she tuned into a frequency bandwidth that mechanically routed her around the disaster. The broken engine wasn't a mechanical failure then, it was a frequency correction.
Precisely. By changing your internal structure through reverence and high-frequency information, you essentially become physically incompatible with disaster. You escape catastrophe not by outrunning it, but by vibrating at a level where the catastrophe simply cannot reach you.
That is fascinating.
And the text goes so far as to claim that just internally acknowledging a new high-frequency identity, specifically just telling yourself, I'm a Lifechanyuan member, immediately triggers a change in the physical and mental structure of your body.
Whoa. The text promises that if you just sit quietly and feel that identity, you will realize your structure is already different. You change simply by absorbing the information we've been unpacking in this deep dive, which honestly brings our journey completely full circle.
Yeah, it does.
We started by looking at a field where two seeds in the exact same dirt grow into totally different plants because of their inherent internal structure.
And then we moved from those plants to the invisible bandwidths of cosmic energy, exploring the realization that the specific religious texts we read and the websites we browse are literal energetic diets rewriting our non-material software.
And finally, we arrived at the radical, world-bending claim that our internal harmony, our choice between focused love or scattered contention, could physically route us around avalanches and dictate the tectonic stability of the Earth itself.
Right.
So, knowing Zufeng's theory, I have a direct question for you listening. How conscious are you of the specific information and energy you've absorbed today? Were you feeding your receiver junk food by doom scrolling, or were you actively mining for gemstones?
And I will leave you with this final thought to mull over. If human consciousness and attention constantly reshape the physical molecular structure of our world, as this text suggests, what kind of literal physical reality are modern algorithms and artificial intelligences currently building for us simply by steering our collective daily information diet?
Something to think about the next time you pick up your phone.